Okay. Thank you, everybody, for attending our meeting. I'm just going to try to set this up. I'm not seeing the ... for making us live on YouTube, unfortunately. There it is. Okay. So we are recording, and we are now. No, I can't make us live on YouTube, unfortunately. Anyway, we'll start the meeting. So I'm going to share my screen here with everybody. In 2 seconds. Okay, and I'll share my screen. My apologies, I don't usually do this. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now. So my name is Dave Holliday. I am the Director of Operations and Infrastructure for the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands. With me today is Michael Edmonds with JML Engineering out of Thunder Bay. So Michael has, we've engaged Michael for the Ivy Lee Wharf design. This was a federal government dock that was downloaded to the municipality in the 90s. It has not seen any work done to it in the past. And it's currently in a state where something needs to be done by the municipality to maintain this piece of infrastructure in order for us to be able to provide the services that we do at that location. Initially, our thoughts were that we would be resurfacing this the wharf and to an estimated amount of $800,000 to $1 million, and that was provided to council. However, when we put out an RFP for the design, we did our due diligence and we included surveying and geotechnical and underwater surveying of the foundation to get a sense of what we were looking at underneath the water as much as we were on the surface. And it was at that point that we found that the foundation was unsuitable for just putting a top on, or it needed some consideration as part of our design. So that's the history of it. I will pass the mic over to Michael Edmonds, and he's going to give you his presentation. Okay, Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody. This is Mike Edmonds with JML Engineering. I'm the project engineer for the Ivy Lee Wharf reconstruction. As David explained, we were hired late last year to complete our inspection and assessment of this wharf in Ivy Lee, which included underwater inspection and geotechnical investigation. So we've entered into the design stage, and we are now at the point of a public information center to let the public and stakeholders know what the plan is moving forward. So this public information session or center is part of the environmental assessment process. Due to the scale and nature of the project being in a waterway, this project is classified as a Schedule B under the municipal class environmental assessment. Part of this process involves presenting to the public, review agencies, and other stakeholders. The intent of it is to receive comments and input during the consultation period that will be considered in the planning and design. So in general, the Schedule B process involves identifying the problem or opportunity, identifying alternative solutions, identifying impacts and evaluating the alternative solutions, consulting with review agencies and public stakeholder consultation. This is the step that we are currently at. We then select the preferred solution, provide a notice of completion. There's a Part 2 order opportunity, which is essentially a method by which stakeholders can appease to the government to stop a project. And then eventually we get to the complete of design and construction. So currently we are in obviously the public information session. We have already applied for approval to the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority and the Fisheries Protection Program, which is the DFO. So the purpose of this project, so like we kind of already explained, JML Engineering has been retained by the township to complete the following. We were to assess the physical and functional condition of all wharf and boat launch elements above and below the waterline. We completed a geotechnical investigation at the site. We analyzed rehabilitation and replacement options for the harbor facilities. We reviewed enhancement options, including security measures, mooring improvements, and functionality improvements. And eventually we'll complete the detailed design for the preferred option. So the location, the Ivy Lee Wharf is located in the township of Leeds and Thousand Islands, approximately 13 kilometers east of Gananoque. The structure is located on the north shore of the St. Lawrence River at 117 Ivy Lee Road in Ivy Lee, Ontario. Some of the background of the wharf and harbor. So as Dave mentioned, the harbor was previously owned by Public Works Canada, and one time accommodated the local Canadian government customs house. Based on existing drawings and discussion with the township staff, it appears the ownership of the facility was turned over to the township of Leeds and Thousand Islands sometime in the early 2000s. The site is quite old. According to historical construction drawings, the right-of-way for the approach was deeded in 1912. Some of the earliest drawings that we have indicate that the east section of the wharf existed in 1966. At the same time, this is when the wharf was expanded to include the west half. Inspection drawings from 1997 indicate a pier consisting of timber piles extending west of the wharf. This is where the floating dock currently exists. So sometime in the last 25 years, some pretty significant work occurred at the site. This is a slide just showing the one of the original drawings we have on file. We actually received this from the DFO through our internal contacts. So you can see at the left-hand side there where it says it was deeded in 1912. It also shows what this thing originally looked like. And you can see that not much has changed in the past 50 years. This drawing is dated 1967. A few other things to point out. There was better lighting back in the day, and the live load of the structure is 200 pounds per square foot. So it is a commercial dock. Description of the site. The wharf consists of rock-filled timber cribs. The timber cribs are generally, they consist of 8x8 creosote treated timbers. Some of the cribs are closed cell, which means that the wall is a continuous wall of timbers from the top to the bottom, like you can see in this picture. But at the other side of the wharf, it is open cell where rock is exposed. If you were to look into the crib, you can see the rock. There's a thin concrete deck at the site. It's about 4 to 6 inches thick, depending on where you look. There's 2 floating docks to the east. There's a timber framed building, which was the old customs house. There's a steel grating boat launch. As you can see in this photo, there's some deteriorated vertical timber planking acting as fenders. There's currently 1 light at the site, and there's steel and timber curbs around the perimeter. The wharf is currently used by a combination of commercial vessels, such as contractor barges, government-owned vessels, such as the municipal fireboat, tourist vessels, and recreational vessels. The size of the vessels that utilize the wharf vary from small 14-foot fishing boats, as you can see the top picture, up to larger tugboats, you can see in the bottom picture. It is likely that only small vessels or boats utilize the boat launch ramp based upon the the small size and awkward orientation of the ramp. So during our inspection and investigation of the site, we found numerous problems with the existing facility, starting with the poor physical condition of many of the wharf elements. The concrete deck is in poor condition. It has very wide cracks. Generally, it's an uneven surface, and there are a couple areas where we observed punching shear failure, which is our fancy way of saying there's a hole in the concrete. The second photo shows that there is fill loss within the cribs. So when this thing was originally constructed, the rock within the cribs would have been filled right to the top, and then the concrete was poured on top of that rock. In this photo, you can see that you can see the underside of the concrete, and there has been some subsidence or loss of the rock within. This may be part of the reason why there's punching shear at the concrete deck, where essentially a load just punched directly through the concrete where there was no rock below to support it. There's very severe rot at many of the timber elements. In this photo, we're showing a curb, but in that previous slide, the timber elements were also very rotten. The first photo on the left, it's kind of hard to see, but we observed differential settlement at the cribs. Basically, what that means is one corner of the wharf has settled down more than the other corner, and so the wharf is no longer level in any direction. A few of the corners of the wharf vary by 6 to 8 inches in elevation. During our underwater investigation, these next two photos, we observed deteriorated timbers below the water line. Usually they're square cut timbers in timber crib construction. However, it is possible that they were not square cut, although that would be unusual. We also noted significant zebra mussel accumulation on all of the elements below water. Picture on the right-hand side, it shows there was some scouring and undermining below the cribs. So that lowest timber at the crib is not bearing upon the riverbed, which may explain some of the settlement observed in the structure. Photo on the left, very deteriorated crib timbers within the splash zone. The splash zone is essentially the area of the wharf between low water level and high water level, where it gets wet and water wicks up on the elements over and over again, which is a breeding ground for rot. The middle photo, there's a deteriorated concrete retaining wall, very deteriorated. It's essentially failed, adjacent to the boat launch. And last, the deteriorated boat launch ramp, which is steel, and there's some gaps between old concrete and steel, and it's just not in very good condition. We also observed that the functionality of the site is fair to poor. The wharf occupies a very large footprint in that it's just a very wide area, which doesn't really do much for the users, aside from perhaps driving vehicles on it in the past when there was less deterioration. So really, the wharf is occupying a significant amount of the riverbed, but doesn't really give you any additional mooring opportunities or use of a harbor facility. There's a building on the wharf that appears currently unused, or perhaps some storage, but that occupies some of the wharf area, which could be used for other things. And then there's poor lighting with only one light on the site. The boat launch is difficult to use. The ramp is oriented 90 degrees to the approach road, which is somewhat unique. So there's little room for any tow vehicles in front of the ramp. Typically, you would have a run-out length where you can drive straight and reverse straight into a boat launch. This facility doesn't allow the typical use of a boat launch. The last picture it's a narrow site with adjacent private property. So with all of our observations of the poor physical condition and functionality at the site, there is an opportunity to improve the site, both physically and functionally. The wharf and the boat launch are in poor condition and are nearing the end of their useful life. They both require rehabilitation or replacement. Conversely, the floating docks at the site are generally in good condition and could be reused. Improvements to the wharf and boat launch can be considered as part of the project, including realignment of the structures to improve the functionality of the boat launch and increase the available mooring for vessels, improved lighting at the site, and provide security features such as controlled access gates and cameras. So when we're assessing alternative solutions for this, there's a variety of options. So essentially, we've determined that rehabilitation is required, or at least recommended to be done at the site. So the first thing is you can just rehabilitate the existing wharf. Alternatively, we can replace it. If you go down the replacement route, you can either do a new layout or you can maintain the existing layout. And then lastly, open piled, the various types of construction of wharfs include an open piled solution, a timber crib solution, and a steel sheet piling solution. In all of this, do nothing is always an option, but as Dave mentioned at the start, the facility is in a state of disrepair, and due to the deficiencies observed, the township in advance of our inspection had already closed vehicular access to the site. And so in general, through discussions with the township, do nothing is not a viable option. So we did not look at that option moving forward. So now that we're possibly considering replacing the wharf and boat launch, we definitely have to get a geotechnical investigation done to determine the subsurface conditions. So we advanced 3 boreholes at the site late last year, and this is a general summary. The site consists of rock fill within the existing cribs. There is organic elastic silt and loose silty sand below the cribs. A fancy way of how we would, in the layperson may say, loon poop. There's glacial till above bedrock that is located approximately 6 meters to 8 meters below the top of the wharf along the south side. So some geotechnical conclusions. 6 meter to 8 meter depth of bedrock is relatively shallow. So that introduces several challenges with what we would call a deep foundation solution, such as driving piles or driving sheet piles. Essentially, pile fixity, which is the soil prevents the toe of the pile from sliding away when you put load on it. Pile fixity cannot be attained with this shallow depth of overburden. There's just not enough soil above bedrock to restrain piles from buckling and sliding when loaded. So essentially, to do a deep foundation at this site, you would have to core the piles into bedrock or provide toe pins at the sheet piles. The organic elastic silt and loose silty sand layers do not provide adequate bearing resistance for shallow foundations. So on the one side, bedrock is too shallow to do a deep foundation solution. On the other side, the existing soil is too weak to found a shallow foundation upon it. So essentially, to build a new crib, shallow foundations would need to be founded upon the till layer of bedrock, approximately 5 meters below the top of the existing wharf. So in the evaluation of alternative solutions, Well, this provides a list of the pros and cons of each of the solutions we reviewed. So in rehabilitation of the existing wharf, which would essentially involve replacement of the timbers above water line, providing a new concrete deck and a new concrete boat launch. The pros are, this would be the least expensive option to construct. It would have the least environmental impact since it would have limited in-water work. There would be lesser involvement with approval parties due to the relatively straightforward rehabilitation exercise and minimal in-water work. And it maintains the historic layout of the harbor, which I'm sure there's some value to that. The cons to this solution: there would be no improvement to mooring or boat launch ramp alignment. I mean, the large footprint of the wharf would remain, and that 90-degree to the boat launch would remain, which is not desirable. This would have the lowest design life of the options considered, less than 50 years. Essentially, you'd be putting a significant investment above questionable timbers below waterline. The settlement and movement of the existing cribs may continue, leading to increased maintenance and sooner total replacement. So essentially, you'd be back to doing another rehabilitation project sooner than the other options considered. This would have the lowest design live load of the options considered. Since we're rehabilitating an existing structure, there's no opportunity to increase the live load rating. Prevention of the scouring at the base of the cribs would reduce the available draft for vessel mooring. So the only way to prevent that erosion and undermining in that photo we showed earlier would be to provide rock around the perimeter of the wharf, which would impact the amount of water available for vessels. So replacement of the structure with the existing layout. This maintains the existing wharf footprint and historic layout of the harbor. This would have an improved design life compared to option A with 50+ years. You can improve the design live load with this option. And wharf settlement should be reduced by either removing the compressible riverbed or by constructing piles. The cons are similar to option A: no improvement to mooring or boat launch ramp alignment. There would be significant excavation required to found cribs on the proper soils or expensive pile construction. There's significant in-water works required. And again, reduced functionality of the harbor in terms of mooring and launching vessels. Replacement with a new layout. There's an opportunity to provide an improved boat launch alignment. You can design to improve mooring for vessels. This would have a 50+ year design life, similar to the second option. Wharf settlement should be reduced, and you can improve the live load. The cons are significant in-water works required and significant dredging if you went with the crib route. So as a quick comparison of all of the options, you can see that in general, it appears that the main consideration would be construction costs and the improvements that you would get for said cost. It's like almost like what's the best bang for your buck at this site? Are you going to spend the money and rehabilitate an existing wharf, and it's not going to last that long, but it's easy and cheap? Or do you invest more and provide an improved functionality at the site? And so through discussions with the township, we're generally in the camp that now is the time that if you're going to make a change, you should make a change. And so replacement with a new layout is the preferred preliminary option, because a new harbor layout provides the most improvements to the functionality of the site for current and projected future use. So this is the first proposed layout. This layout maintains the existing boat launch location. That's the defining feature. So if you look at this drawing, this is a preliminary drawing we prepared. You can see a lightly dashed outline kind of in the water there. That is the footprint of the existing wharf. So with this layout, by making the wharf smaller and maintaining the boat launch location, we're able to provide additional mooring along the west side and additional mooring along the east side. However, there's no improvement to the boat launch alignment, and the boat launch remains difficult to use. So this option has good mooring improvement, but does very little for launching of vessels. So this is the second layout we considered. This layout provides a new boat launch location. So the main pro is that the boat launch is now oriented in line with the approach road. Another pro is that there's dedicated mooring areas separated from the boat launch along the west side. So boat launch traffic and mooring traffic would be separated. The con for this layout would be that there is slightly less mooring than layout A. So that option is the preferred option from a functionality perspective, with the main driving feature being the improved boat launch ramp alignment. So there are obviously a significant number of proposed layouts that we could come up with if we were to increase the footprint of the wharf. In those two options we showcased, the new wharf and boat launch remained within the footprint of the existing wharf. So there's a few reasons why we shouldn't go down the path of increasing the footprint. Extending the wharf beyond the southern limit of the existing wharf can improve mooring and boat launching further, but also presents significant additional challenges. There'd be increased loading from the river current and ice flows, sediment transport and erosion upstream and downstream of the site would need to be considered. You'll be encroaching into a navigable waterway. Regulatory approvals from the DFO, Transport Canada, or the Cataraqui Conservation Authority could refuse this concept. And of course, the bigger you go, the more costly it is, both dollar-wise and from an environmental perspective. Based on the above, increasing the wharf footprint was not considered any further. So now that we've kind of selected a preferred layout, there are various types of construction, as we touched on earlier. These three photos show three types of wharfs that could be considered at this site. All three of these photos are from other projects of ours in the past, recent past. So the first one, timber cribs, which is essentially what you have now, which is a series of 8x8 dimensional timbers filled with rock. The one challenge with timber cribs at this site is that when you remove the existing wharf, dredging is required to a depth of 5 meters below the top of deck to found the cribs on soil with adequate bearing capacity. This option has the least construction cost of the options considered, and because of that and its feasibility in construction, it is preferred. We also looked at an open piled concept, which is a series of steel piles driven to bedrock, and you pour a concrete deck on top. The challenge with this concept is that, as discussed earlier, these piles would need to be cored into bedrock to provide tip fixity, which is highly expensive and highly specialized. So it's also fairly uncommon with wharfs. We've seen it with bridges where there's a few piles that need to be cored, but at a site like this where dozens of piles would need to be cored, it becomes highly cost prohibitive very quickly. The last option, steel sheet piling, again, due to the shallow depth of bedrock, there's nothing to hold the toe in place, so toe pins would be required to fix the ends of the sheet piling. Again, this is an uncommon solution with high construction costs, and it's a very specialty type of construction. So for those reasons, timber cribs remain the preferred solution at this site. So as part of the rehabilitation project, there are several other improvements that are being considered, beyond just replacing the wharf. So we'll be providing new steel bollards, steel curbs, steel ladders, and rubber D fenders around the perimeter. The concrete boat launch will be precast and it'll be 20 feet wide. We'll be providing new lighting at the site. There'll be lights mounted to the retaining wall at the approach driveway. There will be a new light pole at the entrance to the wharf, designed to reduce light pollution into neighboring properties. And there will be new pedestal lighting on the wharf. Another consideration is security to the site. We've been considering providing key fob access to operate a barrier arm at the wharf entrance. And we've been considering a pedestrian gate with a key fob access to the outer floating dock. Lastly, there would be a camera mounted to the light pole with a live feed. So the preliminary preferred alternative, preliminary preferred alternative would be to realign the boat launch and provide a dock with increased mooring on the west side, and constructed out of timber cribs. The preliminary preferred alternative comes with a cost of approximately $2.1 million. So these photos on this slide on the left-hand side, that's pretty much what you're going to be looking at is the completed construction. This is a wharf that we designed near Thunder Bay. It was constructed in 2020. So you can see the concrete deck, steel bollards, steel curb, and there's some rubber D fenders in the photo as well. And then the photo in the middle would be a conceptual gate that would go out at the outer floating dock to restrict access. And then we provided an example of what we're considering for the pedestal lighting that would go along the wharf. So for this project, the planned schedule is for construction to begin in the summer of 2023. The in-water work window is July 15th to September 15th, 2023. So the bulk of the work would start in mid-July, and then completion of construction would be expected to be late October. And so that's a summary of the planned Ivy Lee Wharf reconstruction. So we now would open this to the public for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. We do have a couple questions throughout the presentation. In the beginning, the timeline between number 4 and number 5E, I believe that was back towards the beginning regarding where we are at right now with the CA, and 5E would be selection of the preferred solution. So we're looking right now that we have established a preferred solution. I can answer that question for Paul, and we're hoping that, subject to the feedback, and I'll take questions. If you guys want to raise your hand, you don't have to keep typing them in. You just raise your hand, and I'm happy to answer the question, or Michael can answer the questions as well.
Yeah. So this question is the timeline between this presentation essentially and when we select the preferred alternative. That's the question? Yeah. So basically right now we are in the approval process. So we be in number 4 until we get regulatory approval from the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority and the DFO. So if we get preliminary feedback from them, essentially saying that, you know, we're good to proceed with whatever restrictions they may have, such as the in-water work window and, you know, anything else, you know, we're still in the early process. And then also once public feedback essentially stops coming in, what happens is we would send out a notice of completion, which says that, okay, we're now done this Schedule B process. There would then be a 30-day comment period after that published notice of completion. At the end of that 30 days, that's the, I guess that's when we select the preferred alternative and move to design.
Okay. The next question is, what about removal of current and creation of a land support for a large floating dock to attach smaller floating docks?
So, I mean, there, you know, when we were mulling together a few of the layout options, we had initially considered some additional mooring. And there are opportunities to do that to the east, but, you know, construction costs do start to creep up. Floating docks are pretty environmentally friendly, so there's likely no concern there aside from whatever might be associated with any anchorage to the riverbed. But I mean, the primary reason would be construction costs at this time. And perhaps David could answer that some more, but an important thing to point out would be providing floating docks to the south of the existing south limit of the wharf would project out into the current. And so there would definitely be some navigability concerns, environmental concerns, and well, engineering concerns. It's tricky to make a robust floating docks system work in all flow conditions when you go out into a river like that.
Great, thank you, Michael. The third question is, will we receive a recording of this presentation? And I can respond to that, we are recording this right now and it is live on YouTube. So a copy will be available on YouTube. And I think there's access to it from our website as well. Fourth question, how would key fob access be determined and who is eligible to get one? I can answer this one as well in terms of key fob. We haven't determined how the key fob access would work for the pedestrian facility at the end of the wharf. Ideally, to start off, I think it would be unlocked in the open season and then locked in the closed season when the wharf is officially closed for the season. The power gates, the challenge that we've had in the past is uncontrolled access by contractors, by property owners that are on the islands doing work. So our hope is that, and it's resulted in some damage to the wharf. So our hope is that we'll have a contract in place where there will be insurance that received, and we will allow access. We'll give a fob. It'll have access for the time that has been agreed upon, and then at the end of that time period, the access would no longer be granted, or it would be extended at that point, and go from there. Okay. So the next question is, has there been any consideration regarding Ivy Lee Road access to the launch, as it is a small congested road with many seniors and tourists on it? Also parking for the trailers while they are on the river for the day. So in terms of the road access leading in on Ivy Lee Road, we are very limited with the width of the road allowance. We have measures in place for speed reduction with speed humps and signs, and we tried a variable message board that wasn't really well received, so we removed that. So we're limited to what we can do in terms of the right-of-way leading in, other than reducing the speed to make sure that it's safer for pedestrians and other motorists. For the parking, we have acquired land across the road, which does have to go through site plan approval to be regulated parking facility. Right now, it's an open space that the municipality has required, and we are looking at formalizing this. So some good work has been done by council leading up to this, acquiring land for parking so that we have that capacity moving forward. The next question, what security risks are the proposed gates supposed to mitigate? And I think I answered that question with the damage to the current wharf. We have had some transient boaters that have stayed for extended periods of time outside of the season. So we're trying to mitigate that as much as possible. And then obviously we have to set some bylaws in place as well that will work with what we're planning. A need for species at risk assessment and the effect on timing for construction dates. Michael, I just wonder if you can help out with this one.
Yep. So we have initiated a species at risk assessment. There is one aquatic species at risk. I don't have it off the tip of my tongue. I apologize for that, but that is part of our application through the Fisheries Protection Program, whereby if they recommend that we need to go farther down the species at risk application, we will do that. You know, I don't foresee that the aquatic species at risk will stall the project in any way. There may be some additional mitigation measures such as timing windows or some other consideration, but short answer is yes, we have done our due diligence in that regard.
Thank you. Next question is, has full consideration been given to this design for commercial contractor use of this dock, or is it primarily being looked at as a recreational use? So that I can speak to some of it, and Michael may want to add some information to it as well. We have given consideration to the access for the contractors. Obviously, we're still building a wharf that will accommodate contractor use. We're looking to put measures in place for us to be able to manage and maintain those that access, have control over it. Additionally, we're looking at the boat launch as well as being both for recreational and contractor use, with a 20-foot width and a heavier duty concrete structure of what the ramp will be made of. So consideration on both parts of the wharf, the ramp as well as the wharf, are being considered for both recreation and contractor use. Do you want to add anything to that, Michael?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we when we came into this, you know, we would define this as a quote small craft wharf, but that doesn't imply recreational only. It's certainly intended for commercial vessels such as that tug that we showed in that photo, you know, which I guess to some would not be a small craft. We will be providing a live load on the wharf of 250 pounds per square foot. And the bollards are going to be designed for 5 tons each. So significant mooring loads for larger, heavier vessels has been considered in the design. It's a rather robust design with large rock-filled timber cribs and a heavy, thick concrete deck to ensure stability. And then, like David mentioned, with a new, wider, realigned boat launch, larger vessels could be launched, and we've included in the design ensuring that it extends well beyond the low water level so that it's usable in any flow situation.
Thanks, Michael. Next question, are there any plans or proposals in place for the parking area to serve the boat ramp and wharf? I addressed this one earlier with one of the questions where the municipality has acquired the land across the road adjacent to the hotel that's there, and part of the bigger project is looking at that and incorporating a proper parking facility for this wharf. Are you planning on allowing overnight mooring on this dock? Concerned about noise levels at nearby homes. We should not be creating a new marina out front of our homes. Property values will be impacted. As Michael had indicated with his presentation, we're not looking at increasing any of the mooring that is currently there. If anything, we are slightly reducing the amount of mooring available at this site. We're We are not providing power currently to the docks, so we're in no way are we promoting overnight. It's same use as what it has always been. We're just trying to make it more functional for all users. Next question is, what was the cost to acquire the land, and has it been included in the cost model for construction? In the capital budget for 2022 and 2023, the total cost of construction of $2.6 million was included in the capital budget. That does include the full cost of this project for the acquisition of the land, the design completed by JML, the contract administration, and the construction as well for 2.6. Often there are vehicles parked on the launch approach or on the side of Ivy Lee Road, which has not been well policed, blocking other public use and also emergency services needing access at any time of the day. So aside from the construction of the wharf, I'm working with our planning and development group, and we are revamping the parking bylaw and consideration is being given for this location for emergency access and the fire route, where it currently doesn't exist in the bylaw. So we are working on that as well in tandem. Are there any considerations to allowing the large river boats to dock? So historically at this location, there has been a cruise that has come to the site. I believe it's from Kingston, don't quote me on that. They have reached out to me several times about returning to that process. The wharf will be able to accommodate that, and it's something that will be considered moving forward, whether that's something we want to do or not. When and why would we want to block pedestrian access to the new dock? So this is a good question. We have had, and I had explained this one earlier as well, and this question may have come in before that. We have had some boats that have remained outside of the open season for the wharf when we have declared it closed. Additionally, we have had some situations where boats have stayed for extended periods of time and they have been ticketed, but to no avail. They come and they go. So our hope is to find a way to address those, while at the same time maintaining a facility for regular pedestrians that are coming to use the dock and enjoy it. Trying to find that balance. Again, we haven't determined exactly what it's going to look like long term, but allowing ourselves the opportunity to put the facilities in place to be able to manage that moving forward. Are there things you will have to and will learn about security, damage mitigation, bad behaviors at the site that can apply to Sealy's Bay Harbor? It is in good shape now, but without some control measures, problems will increase. Great question. I think this is the gate at going on to the floating dock, I think is a good example of something that we're going to learn. How is it going to work? What are we trying to control? We may find that we have challenges that we didn't know existed, and we may find that we're creating challenges that wouldn't have been there had we have put this infrastructure in place. So it's finding that balance and working with the users of the facility for that purpose. Additionally, putting in security cameras that are tied into our system, I think, is very important. We historically had a camera out at Sealy's Bay that was not connected to the system. It was standalone. And I think having that live feed and being able to go back and review it is important. So we're going to learn a lot with this in terms of what our needs are and what infrastructure we need to put in place in order to be able to maintain that. Don't like the sound of this becoming a commercial dock. We're not looking to make a commercial dock. There are commercial operations that currently happen at this location that have been unmanaged. An example, we have had Jersey barriers in place that have been pushed out of the way of contractors. We have told local contractors not to go onto the wharf, to find out that they did in fact use it for access, and an example is an excavator ending up in the water that we were unaware of. These are the types of things that we're trying to get control of, and having that controlled security and having insurance in place and allowing access and being able to limit the access, I think is a very important thing for us to find that balance between recreational and commercial. Two parts. Is there going to be a per use cost or a membership fee? Well, I don't know that we're looking at that at this point. It's more important to maintaining the infrastructure. We're not creating a marina. This is more controlled access for what has been happening in the past. There hasn't been consideration at this point, not to say that we shouldn't be considering that moving forward. For the boat ramp, it is public use and will remain public use. That is our intent for this. The ramp length, waste transfer, maintaining footprint of building for fire, parking, and loading, unloading area with hydro for possible future uses. Location for canoes and kayaks in current area. Okay, so the ramp length, as Mike had indicated earlier, the drawing shown on the presentation showed a ramp length of X meters. Looking at that, we do have concerns with that, and we've had discussions about it, that there is the potential during low water that larger boats will need to be removed through the ramp that are on the waterway. So we are extending that ramp beyond what is shown on the drawings, almost out to the end of the wharf, somewhere in that range. Waste transfer, we are looking at having a transfer site or a waste site, waste facility on site, some sort of bin that can be dumped, and seeing if we can fit it somewhere on the site. We believe that we can. Not exactly sure where that is yet, but it is definitely going to have consideration. Maintaining the footprint. So I think Michael can probably speak to this one better than I can. We're looking at the costs, and this is something that council will have to make a decision on as well. The footprint that we have provided with the proposed layout has a narrowed up footprint from where the existing facility was, and we're looking at roughly $2.1 million currently for that construction, which works out at, I think I counted the cells at 15 cells or something. So it's roughly somewhere between $100,000, $150,000 per cell, something like that per se. So we're looking, if we add 2 more cells on there, consideration for somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 on top of what we have estimated so far, I would think. Just something that will need to be considered, and we will certainly put that forward for consideration. Parking and unloading area with hydro for possible future uses. So fire parking, agreed. There is a fire lane. Both sides are defined as a fire lane, and we're looking at the bylaws for that purpose. Loading and unloading area. We are limited with our space, so that's something that we can definitely make note of. And then hydro for possible future uses. We are providing hydro to within the wharf, but not down the docks at this time. So future use is being considered. Location of canoes and kayaks in the current area. The first dock that was adjacent to the boat ramp historically, the intent for that is to make one half of that the fireboat location, where only the fireboat will park, and it will have its own area, leaving the other half of the boat ramp or the dock open, where I see people being able to launch canoes and kayaks at that location away from the boat ramp. Part 2, how is this all funded? So right now that we have included this project in the capital budget, and budget is being presented to council next week. So we'll be having discussions about that. We have looked at different alternatives, including debt financing. So looking at a loan of $2.6 million over 30 years amounts to $4.3 million over the total life. So with that number being said, when you acquire a house, as an example, you don't buy the house for the $4.3 million, but you buy your house for a period of time. And with a wharf like this, we're looking at an expected life expectancy of this facility of 50 plus years. So the people for the next 50 years will have the opportunity to enjoy this facility. And we feel, it is a project, we're presenting it, that we feel this is a project that would warrant debt financing for this, because the people for the next 50 years will have the opportunity to enjoy it. So that's what we're looking at right now, those different options for funding it. And we're recommending that this is one that we do debt finance. Will there be a fee for parking, ramp usage, and docking? So we're looking at, with the site works required for the parking facility, once we construct a proper parking facility, we will be looking at some sort of fee for using that parking lot. We're not looking at a fee at this current time for the ramp usage or docking. The intent of the docking is for loading and unloading your boats. It's not for staying there at an extended period of time, but we'll be putting parameters in place around that. People often try to swim off these areas. What is being done to control that? We are not promoting swimming at this location. Given the current, I don't think this is an ideal location for swimming. There are locations within the municipality adjacent to this where swimming is readily accessible. I am unaware of anybody trying to swim from this location, but we're not promoting it. We are providing the ladders for safe accessibility, but that's the only reason that we're providing those. As a waterfront homeowner close to the project, how do I ensure that no large passenger boats can dock? Well, this is a public facility, and we're not looking to limit who uses this as a public facility. Obviously, the dock space can only accommodate so much. It's not infinite in size. So I think that we're limited in what we can accommodate. There are better locations up and downstream that can accommodate larger boats. And just looking at our bylaws as we move forward to try to maintain this use for everybody, not just for one. Why not require contractors to use commercial marinas and limit the new facility for island residents' pleasure craft? That's a great question. I'm not sure of too many access points where people are able to load and unload their materials. This isn't just for contractors. Contractors are a small percentage. There are a lot of residents that use this for unloading materials, groceries, those types of things. That's all I can say to that one at this point, but certainly something we can have a look at. Overall, nice layout. Not interested in becoming a marina. Yes, and we do not have the space. As I had indicated, we had undertaken the surveying, legal and topographical surveying of this as part of the project, and the property limits are shown where the wharf is. We cannot accommodate a marina and fit within our water lot. Is there going to be removal of all material, including the piles in the floating dock area? Michael, can you speak to that one?
Yep. So below the floating dock, it's being suggested that some of the original piles are still there, which is possible. Currently, no, there's no plan to remove those piles. When we did our underwater inspection, they appeared to be covered in riverbed material. The only piles that would be removed would be those that are within our proposed dredge limits, which are, we're going 8 feet below riverbed at the existing wharf. So, there's going to be an extension of the dredge limit beyond that footprint to avoid sloughing of material into the excavation. So if there are any piles within that area, then those would be removed. But in general, no, the current scope does not include removing existing piles.
Okay. There's a second part to this one as well, Michael. Is there any information if concrete cribs are a viable option instead of wood cribs?
I mean, I'm personally not familiar with a concrete crib. There are other concrete type options for wharf construction that would all be at a premium to timber. You know, a concrete crib in itself, where you would construct a crib out of all concrete members, would probably be quite heavy. So would put further onus on the dredging that's required. But also the cost increases. So the 2.6 million that's being budgeted for would not include some other material.
Thank you. These large boats now dock further west. When they did use the existing dock, homeowners were not consulted and they were not welcome. We're looking at constructing the wharf with this project. In terms of the usage, that's something that I would recommend reaching out to your local council member. If there are concerns around that, measures can be put in place if it is the will of council to limit the access, and that I think would be the route in terms of the operation of the facility. Are you suggesting that boaters can come up to the dock and dump garbage in a bin? Animal control issues will arise and odor issues. Where will this garbage blow on windy days? So when we're speaking of a garbage facility, it would be a bin that would be, I'm not sure exactly how it would work yet, to be honest with you. We had tried a garbage facility in Rockport, and that happened. Exactly. It was filled with garbage from people, you know, in Rockport for other reasons. So we have to find that balance between providing a service and being able to maintain that service moving forward, certainly. So that's where we're at right now, trying to consider all those different angles. The size of vessel that could use this new and improved ramp, and that island residents can have supplies, appliances, building materials, and equipment to do work on their islands. I'm not sure what the question is. I'm assuming making sure that we're accommodating vessels that can use it.
Yeah, I think the question is basically like, what size of vessel do you think could use the ramp? If I could perhaps speak a little bit to that, you know, the ramp will extend out beyond low water. It will carry up above high water. And so there's no concern from a depth of water perspective. But the ramp will be at a 15% grade just due to the elevation of the wharf relative to the elevation of the riverbed. We would have to extend it much farther, either upland or out into the river, to reduce the grade of the ramp. So the short answer is the vessel size would be limited to the vehicle that can tow it out at a 15% grade. So depending on the weight of the vessel and whether or not you can get enough traction to get up the ramp.
Thank you, Michael. How much more use do you anticipate will take place at the improved wharf? Due to the fact the ramp will be a lot easier to use, will contribute to a lot more use. I agree that this will attract people that maybe have been afraid to use it in the past. I think our measures leading into the wharf and the fact that we're providing proper parking facility, you know, we want to try to find that harmonious balance between the existing residents that live in Ivy Lee every day and have to deal with additional use in the summertime. It's finding that balance. It's keeping everybody at a reasonable rate of speed and making sure that we're accounting for the queues that will be coming. I think that given the wider ramp, you know, with smaller vessels, there might be an opportunity for two at a time to unload, which will reduce the queue lines. I've seen a lot of boats go in and out of that place already, so I think that it's well used as it is. It will see some increase in use, but I think it's a positive facility that we're looking to construct with potential economic growth as a result of that. You know, the businesses should see additional people coming in, and I think that that angle is definitely a positive for Ivy Lee. Cameras are a must. I agree. We've learned that at a lot of our facilities that the only way to have an eye on things is to have a camera in place and have the information after, if there is an issue, to be able to go back and deal with the situation. Comment: make users take the garbage they generate with them, and that's consideration as well. We need to look at the whole big picture, at least provide the space at this time and determine what the need is and whether it's supported moving forward. Totally against any type of waste facility. I have to take my garbage to the dump, and so should the islanders and boaters. We can foresee only problems with this, and the only people that will suffer are those of us who live in the north of the Wharf area. So again, this is something that we need to explore. We have seen some challenges in other locations with providing that, but certainly we're giving consideration now and for long term. Great improvement for access to islands and a safety for all that use it for many years. Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. We do have a couple raised hands as well, and I'm not sure if we've answered those questions, but oh, maybe they're gone. I thought there were raised hands, but now there are no longer. If anybody else has a question, it looks like we've come to the end of any questions that I can see at this point.
Does look like there's 2 raised hands there.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so we have 2 attendees with raised hands. My apologies. Okay, we'll start with Jonathan Landon. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi there. I'm located right adjacent to the project in question, and a number of times I've asked for some sort of consultation for what's planned here, and I've not received an adequate response yet. Will those of us that are literally impacted by this every single day, get some increased level of sort of awareness and understanding, and perhaps ability to suggest into this to make it more livable for us, since we are most affected? That's my first question.
Okay. Well, that's the purpose of this meeting tonight. Is any input that you might have, and future follow-up, feel free to reach out, and we can have a discussion with the engineers as well and see what we can do.
And David, are we reaching out to you specifically?
You can reach out to me specifically, yes.
Okay, because I've got like 2 pages of questions here, but some of them have direct impact on our property and what will happen. A couple of things of note: that the large commercial vehicle that you're entertaining, that Empress thing that comes in from Kingston, significant source of noise pollution all night long. They run their generators. The buses come in. The buses are running the entire time. Anything that we can do to sort of not encourage that would be appreciated.
I do believe that we have an idling bylaw in place now.
It's not, we've been there for years. It's not being adhered to. Even when moved to a different location, it still runs all night long because it can't run without a generator.
Okay.
Right. There are people staying on that vessel. There are people eating, dining, all of that stuff. It's just, they've got to have a generator.
Okay.
In terms of the ramp itself, the plan that I saw sort of indicates that it will sort of open up the area that is directly beside us. And I'm trying to understand, I would like a little bit of discussion with whoever the engineer is on sort of how that's going to impact specifically our dockage.
Okay, that would be Michael.
Yep. Do you dock on the like adjacent to the current west face of the wharf? So I'm assuming you're, first of all, I guess the first question is, you are the residents west of the existing property.
We're at 115 Ivy Lee Road.
I'm assuming that's west.
That's actually east. That's east there. No, it's west of there. What am I saying? It's west of there. Sorry.
Okay.
Must have
Yeah.
been.
So you're the house that's abutting against the driveway.
Yeah, the house that you show in the pictures, that's us.
Yep, that's you. Okay. Yeah, so I would suggest that you know, the construction of this thing in itself may affect you. So for the 1 year that this project is being constructed, you're certainly going to have trouble mooring on your east side of that dock that I believe is there. I recall looking at it when I was on site. But in long term, you won't have anyone mooring immediately to your east anymore. This is going to be where they're launching the boats. So I would suspect what you'll see more is just people launching their boat and then boating away.
Yeah,
rather
I
than
guess
having it-
my ask is, can we just have a chat about it so I better understand it?
Sure.
And how do I arrange that?
Well, I would go ahead and send myself and David an email, and yeah, we can set something up.
Okay. And in terms of the concept of putting a gate in there to sort of prevent this winterized access, I mean, everyone knows who's using that facility with the barges in the winter. I understand that they're not concerned about it. There must be some other remedial action that it sort of allows the wharf to be more, used by the people of the village year round. And that we're not being penalized, or the people of the village aren't being penalized because of the behavior of literally one organization.
So with that, the only portion of the dock that we're looking to gate off to pedestrian access is the floating dock at the very end of the wharf.
Okay. Thank you. I think the rest of my comments, I think, Michael, are sort of so specific to our property that they're not of interest to anyone else on the call. And David, so maybe I could take these up with you separately.
Absolutely. Happy to have a discussion about it.
On the
for
whole
sure.
garbage,
I'm
on
glad
the
you're
whole-
here.
Yeah, on the whole garbage thing, oh my goodness, no.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, no. We were doing some renovations, and the behavior that ensued just while we had been out there for a few weeks was unbelievable.
That's good feedback. I appreciate that.
It was just ridiculous. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. We do have some more questions here. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing potential plans. Thank you. Totally agree with not allowing the Empress to park overnight. Okay, that's something that we'll have to look at. That ultimately would be a decision made by council, and we can have that discussion. And the last one was thank you for your time. So if there's anything else, we're still here. You want to raise your hand, or if that's it, then I thank everybody for their time tonight for attending this. We really appreciate it. And if you have any more questions, my email was on the presentation, as was Michael's, and we're on the website. So if you want to reach out, please feel free. And yeah, have a good night. Thank you.